All right, so we should be back. Sorry, we dropped off there. We're not having a lot of luck with our network or our streaming today. At any rate, doesn't matter. So what we've got is we went and added, we did all the work to add our get bread button. If you missed that part, so we have a new get bread button, which is a type button. We went down here. We added we styled it a bit. So we gave it a title, we gave it a border color, we gave it a border width. We did a little bit of work to place it just right. And when we added it to the space, oh, we need to fill in our placeholder. Hold on, we'll delete that for now, and then we'll run it just to see what we have. Cool, so there's our button. It appears pretty evenly spaced from the other ones. We had to lower down our yellow button a little bit. So if you're following along with our exact code, you'll have to move down your add fish button that we probably should rename to add duck button. So we moved it to Y is 375. We kept this width and height the same. For our get bread button, our point is 275 because we wanted it over this way a little bit because the X position is that middle point. We put the Y at 450 so it didn't go off the screen. And then the sides, we gave it a wider width but the same height as the other ones. So that's where we're at. Now we got to wire it up. So what we were doing was we were writing a function for that. So get bread. What we're going to do is maybe have the ducks all gather in the same place. So let's do that. Let's say what we're going to do is we're going to keep all of our ducks here. We append our ducks to this ducks array. So what we'll do is we'll just iterate through that. So we'll have a for loop for that. So let's say for, and we don't want to use this version, the I in range. We want to say for duck in ducks, because this is the array, and this will be our variable as we loop through the code that will hold each duck in the array. What are we going to have it do? Well, we're going to move that duck to a certain point. So we're going to say duck top position equals, and now we did this before, if you recall, when we were trying to get things to move in relation to something else, is we would create a point. We'd set up our initializer with an X and Y int, and we would use the position of that duck currently to move it along. Well, in this case, we want to have them gather around a certain area. So maybe let's start the ducks out at maybe 10 on the x-axis and 10 on the y-axis. We'll gather them all in this quadrant here. So let's see what that looks like. Well, first off, what do we need before we go see what it looks like? We need to wire up that get bread button, right? So get bread dot pressed. I'm going to change the pressed property, and we're going to connect it to this get bread function. Let's see what we have. All right, I'm going to expand this so I can see. All right, looking pretty good. I'm going to hit my bread button. And you know what? It might be blocked by this Coding at Home Aquarium tab. So I might need to move that down. So if I hit get bread, nothing happens, which is not totally unexpected. There's my duck. Let me try hitting the bread button now. All right, we moved it. Okay, this is not the most exciting function because what I'm doing is if I add a whole bunch of these, they all land right on top of each other. That's not exciting. Now it's working because if we add a lot of ducks and then we say bread, they all come to where the bread is. That's cool. But not exactly what we want. So what we can do is we can have a variable here that'll change a little bit and maybe line up the ducks to get the bread as we iterate through the array. So what we could do is create a couple of variables. So we'll create this one called x, and we'll give it a value of 10 because that's where we wanted the ducks to start on the x-axis. And then let's create a variable of y as well. And we'll make that equal to 10 too. So that's where we're going here. So actually we'll use those variables now to place the duck. So let's run our code. Create a couple of ducks, hit bread, and they all go to the same spot they were going to before. Okay, that's cool. I mean, that's not exactly what we want, but that's not bad. Well, what we want to do then is use the fact that this is a variable and change these values after we place a duck at that position. So let's do this. Let's use the x. And if you remember, this is called incrementing. We'll increment in this case. We won't, decrement is the opposite. Is when you add a number to another number. We'll use this plus equals operator here. So what we'll do is maybe we'll move this duck 20, not percent, we'll move it 20 on the x and y axis. So we'll do the same. We'll do x plus equals 20 and then y plus equals 20. Now let's try running our code. And we'll add a few ducks. We'll hit bread. Okay, cool. Now this is getting more interesting. Now we have all of our ducks kind of lined up, our ducks in a row, if you like. So that's not too bad. Maybe they're a little too up close and personal. We might want to move them maybe 30 instead of 20. We could also figure out how big they are, what their height and width is, and maybe move them according to that. That might be a better way to do it. But for now, we'll just kind of guess. We'll have a rough guess at our number. All right, so that's how we're going to move our ducks. And actually, do you know what? I want to have them line up. Yeah, that'll work. Actually, you know what? Tell you what. Let's have them going away from our spot. So let's change this to minus equals. So I'm just tapping on the increment operator, and I'm changing it to a decrement operator. So it's going to minus 30 from the current value of x, and then assign that value to x. So what's 10 minus 30? Be negative 20. So the next time we'll go at the negative 20 x-axis. So we should see our duck showing up here, and then the next one here and here. So let's run our code and check that out. Get bread. All right, cool. That's not too bad. Now, the reason I might do something like that is because maybe what I want to do is have the bread actually show up here. So we're imagining that someone has thrown some bread into our aquarium and our ducks are lining up to get a piece. All right, so there's our get bread. We've wired up our function we're using. Now, this is really nice because I haven't had to write a lot of code, and no matter how many ducks I put on the screen, they'll just keep being laid out. So I could add hundreds of ducks. Maybe we won't wait around to add hundreds, but give them all bread, and there we go. Now they're going off the screen. There's something, maybe what we'd want to do is figure out if the x and y point was too far in the negative. Maybe then we'd restart at the top. Let's figure that out. All right, so if the x and the y are... We'll go over here. So we'll just have a quick check to make sure that they don't disappear. We'll say if. So we want to make sure that it's on screen. So x, we want to say that it's greater than. Oop, help if I grabbed it, right? X is greater than minus. Let's say, let's not get them too far down. So 475. And we'll do now, since we're changing x and y at the same rate, we can kind of just use X. We could also have done the same with Y. We could have had an AND operator to test both of them because they'll both be the same value. What we'll do is we'll reset X and Y. So we'll say X equals, now you'll note I'm not using an increment operator here. We'll reset it to, let's say, 15, and we'll set the Y to 15. So let's see what that does. Let's run our code. Now I'll create a bunch of ducks. That should go off the screen. And we'll get bread. Okay, so that didn't quite work out because they're all sort of placed around here. So maybe we'd have to do a little bit more thinking. This X is greater than minus 450, minus 475. That's probably not the right test. We probably want to switch that then. Let's try switching it. We want to see if X is less than minus 475. So let's try that again. Create a bunch of ducks. Get bread. Okay, you can see that we have a second row of ducks here, kind of overlapping the first. Now we might want to figure out where we'd place these guys. But at least we have everybody on the screen. They're not falling off the screen at any rate. So that's another way that we can augment our game. We can use an array and loop through them and make those instances of ducks do something. And this is how we can get it to change as we loop through the array. By using that increment or decrement operator in this case, we're able to get ducks laid out in different positions and in a certain pattern after using our random functions from before. Now you'll also note that if I go to do a second row, we'll just lay them out in the same order. So maybe we'd need to change that around the next time through as well. So we'd have to maybe create a row variable and increment that. So variables are really, really powerful things because they can kind of keep track of where we are, what state we're in, how many rows of ducks we have. We could have used our count property to say, okay, well, maybe I only want a row of 10 ducks each. If I want to change the positioning of these guys, if I say, actually, do you know what? These guys need to be 2 meters apart. I would change this from minus 30 to maybe minus 200. These are a lot of different directions that we can go with our app Aquarium. I've had a ton of fun playing with this. We're not going to spend too much more time with this playground. I think we've had our fun. We've built a ton of stuff for our app Aquarium. I'd love to see your ideas. I'd love to see the playgrounds that you've built. Please send them through to live@thecodehub.ie. You can share your playground from the menu item and send it to our email address. We'd love to see them. But what we're going to do is tomorrow we're going to go back to the Assemble Your Camera playground. We're going to work on our last page in that, which is where we start using an app instance. And that's going to show us another way to organize our code that I think will really help you, especially after having seen how to build your own app in Swift Playgrounds. And you've seen what's worked well, what hasn't, how we've had to reconfigure some of our code as we've gone along and changed maybe some of the ideas we had about the app. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. And thanks for joining us.